How's it? Can you hear me? Okay. So, what's a haole from the mainland doing talking about pigeon, right? Yeah. I will answer that question, I hope. I'll tell you how I came to write this book that I'm going to be showing you on the screen. All right. My name is Lorna Holmes, and I work as a PTT for the ELL students at Kaiulani Elementary School. I'm retired from teaching in college, so this is my first venture into elementary education. And I started teaching there, and I found that I needed certain materials that just weren't available. The first thing I felt I needed was something written in Pidgin, and try to find a parallel text English Pidgin book for elementary school students. You will have a hard time. So this is how I came to write this book, which is now available from Hawaii Review, and you can get it online. So if you take the handout, you can get the link, or please sign up with my sign-up sheet, and maybe we can form a little interest group for elementary education. All right. How many of you grew up here? All right. How many of you are haoles from the mainland like me? Okay. These are basically the two kinds of teachers that we have here. And that's what I want to look at things from the teacher's point of view for a little while, because basically we've been looking at it from the children's point of view the whole time. And what do we do with the fact that a lot of you who grew up here went through the whole Pidgin is just a bad form of English, something that needs to be suppressed school, and then the other people, haoles from the mainland, perceive Pidgin as being just incorrect English. And so they're just constantly correcting it. They don't know. So the difference between Pidgin and English here is what is not clear to everyone. And that is what I found as the greatest difficulty when dealing with all of the different children speaking all of the different languages that we have. Kaiulani is about 50% ELL. I think it should be more. All right, so how many of you know Mandarin and Cantonese and Vietnamese and Chuukese and Marshallese and Pohnpeian and Samoan and Ilocano and Tagalog and Cebuano and Pidgin and English? Yeah, me too. Okay, so it's hard teaching ELL, and nobody knows all those languages. But the cool thing is, in Hawaii, we have a local language that is a key that we can use with almost all of the students, because they're almost all exposed to Pidgin, even if that's not their first or second language. But for a lot of kids, it is, in fact, their first or second language. And I think that we should be using it that way. So telling people that the way they talk is bad or wrong, that doesn't help anything at all. Let me go to my first page. Oh, wait, let's see. Who's a native Pidgin speaker in the first row here? Native Pidgin speaker, put your hand up. Nobody? Native Pidgin speaker in the front. No one is a native Pidgin speaker. Really? No one is a native Pidgin speaker. Someone who grew up speaking Pidgin. Okay. Could you read the Pidgin parts for me? All right. So I'm working with a first grader, and he's really good at guessing. And he doesn't really read the words. He guesses from the picture. So he looks at the picture, and the dog is eating a big bowl of food, and we're talking about what's going on, and he goes, "Oh, it says Sam dog come fat." I go, "Wow, Sam dog come fat. I got to write that down." So when you hear children say things that are clearly in Pidgin, then you can use that to compare it with English. In other words, yeah, that is what it is in Pidgin. Now in English it would be this. Instead of saying, "No, that's wrong, that's bad, that's morally indefensible," right? You have to say it this other way. Then the child is now bilingual, right? Bilingual, that's good. Pidgin is a language. We can learn to speak it. I probably can't because I started too late and I'm not immersed enough, but that's okay because even us Hollies from the mainland, if we have materials to use, we can work from that. So when I realized that I was dealing with a new language, that I thought that was great. All right, so I've spent my whole life learning different languages. First one I learned was German. I lived in Germany, went to school, did everything in German. Then I went to college, I learned Latin, I learned Greek, I learned to read French, still can't speak it, and so forth. And so here was another language. So I got Kent Sakota's Pidgin grammar and I read up on it and learned how it worked. When I wrote this, I needed to have a native speaker to help me. So Al Fernandez, who is a Filipino background native speaker, helped me because my style, he said, was too heavy. I had been reading the Jesus book and it was too Pidgin-y. So he went over the whole text for me. And so that is how, even though I am insecure about my Pidgin and my pronunciation, I still feel like this is the kind of thing that we really need. So let's see, where did my native speaker go? Okay, so here we go. And local pictures, Mayor Wright.
We say living Mayor Wright. My auntie them live KPT. We don't know how. We get apartments.
Okay, so you hear the children say things like stay and nomo is very, very characteristic. These are things that you would only say if you speak Pidgin. So we don't want to be correcting them and saying, no, that's wrong. It's correct Pidgin. It's just not the same as English. And I think that one problem that we have is that Hollies from the mainland don't know that, so the teachers could use training in this. In other words, how do you recognize when someone is speaking Pidgin? Then you can use, you don't have to be a speaker yourself, but you can learn enough about how Pidgin works that if you have materials, you can compare the two. And that also, even local people who are teachers need training in distinguishing in a positive way, though, between Pidgin and English. Not saying, oh, you'll never get a job if you speak that way. You can speak another language. It's just another tool that we have to communicate. So learn as many languages as you want. Let Pidgin be one of them. That's the positive way to use Pidgin in education. Okay, and a lot of my students live in Mayor Wright, and they don't know it because they don't say Mayor Wright, they say Mayor Wright or something like that. They don't really know it. Okay, could you give me one more page?
Fred, look what I get. 2 model products. The customers are mine. Let's go school with me. Come then. Let's take over recess.
Okay, so thank you, Al. Yes. This is the kind of thing, again, that a lot of Chinese speakers, for instance, have a problem with. They don't inflect. There's so many things about English that are difficult, like inflection of verbs, the past tenses of verbs, plurals, you know, the little endings that we stick on things. And a lot of the things that happen in English that don't happen in Pidgin also don't happen in other languages. So even if the, let's say, Chinese or Vietnamese speaker isn't speaking Pidgin, he will hear people saying things that way, and you can still use it. You can say, oh yes, that is how we say that in Pidgin. And then here, this is how we say that in English. Very difficult to do if you don't have any materials. And I think the last point I want to make is that it's important to have materials that are printed that respect Pidgin for what it is, a language, right? A language that's different from English and that is possible to learn alongside of English, and that has a correct, let's say, or form that you would use in a book that a teacher would point to and say, this is a correct way to talk. That all of that just to exist is really important. So I just wanted to get the ball rolling by creating some material to use, and I hope that this will just be the first of many such things that we can use to help Pidgin speakers be bilingual at least, if not trilingual, and however many other linguals possible to have. I'd like to stop here because I'm hoping people will have some questions or just personal comments that you might want to bring up on the subject. Anybody? It doesn't have to be a question.
I'm wondering if you've done this just having the picture, and then if they speak, because Pidgin is not always seen, or it's not first a written language, it's a spoken language, and the writing of Pidgin is not quite standardized. So I'm wondering if kids read or look at the picture and tell their own story, like if you can write down what they're saying and then along with the standard English version of that.
That would be a way to use the text. I mean, I'm not saying there's only one way to do it, sure. You could show the picture and have the child describe it and see what he says, you know. You could also be familiar with some of the pictures, and when it comes up, you could say, oh yeah, you remember the picture about the crab or whatever. There's Tamashiro Market. I made all the pictures local. These are just my pictures. And you remember how it says big to crab or whatever, and then you could say, if it comes up, you can just use the examples. And then if the child says something that you want to elaborate on, you have something there that you can use instead of just trying to make it all up. Anyway, other comments? Yes?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. Have you used this material with your students at the elementary school?
Yes, I personally have, yes.
I wonder if you have data you may have this, but did their reading scores improve after being exposed to materials like this?
Okay, I'm really, really saddened to get that question, but I don't think that we will ever have data that could be that specific. In other words, teacher X did this material with students Y and Z, and therefore their WIDA score went up half a point. Have you ever participated in a WIDA test? Yeah. Well, I mean, the results are kind of random. Also, the other thing is, if the only influence on the students' English learning was, you know, quantifiable as me or what I did, that would be one thing, but it just doesn't, it really doesn't work that way. So the WIDA stuff, I find very, very approximate. I mean, you know, they can even go down, which is ridiculous. Oh, they know less English now than they did a year ago? No. Okay. So what happened there? All right, yes.
This is more clarifying. So in ELL, you're using the Pidgin, which they're probably learning from their friends,
Right.
to bring them to become stronger English-speaking students.
Yes, because I can't do instruction in Pidgin. I mean, that's not really part of the school curriculum, but yeah.
So how do you differentiate whether they're just learning broken English as opposed to Pidgin if we're not fluent in Pidgin?
Well, I don't really think that that's a useful thing to try to distinguish. I think broken English tends to be something that's applied to Pidgin speakers wrongly by people who don't recognize Pidgin. It's pretty clear if, let's say, a Mandarin speaker is saying something because he doesn't know enough English.
That's what I mean.
But I mean, that's not really the same as broken English, right?
No, I mean like the students that you have, let's say their first language is Mandarin.
Right.
for example. Are you teaching them Pidgin and then English?
No, I'm not teaching anyone Pidgin. But if they already know Pidgin, or they say something that would qualify as reasonable Pidgin, I can use that, right? That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to be able to actually teach Pidgin. Yeah. Anybody else? I'd like to thank my principal, Jill Pulatasi, for being very supportive of this project, especially for not firing me, which is about the highest level of support you can have, I think. So thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have either, just a comment, doesn't have to be a question again. All right.
When did you start doing this?
I've been at Kyolani, this is my third year there. I started on this project last year, but I didn't really finish it until this, I couldn't really start using it until this year. So yeah, it's kind of an ongoing thing.
How did the children react?
Pardon?
How did the children react?
Oh, the children are so enthusiastic about, especially when they see pictures of things they recognize, they just go nuts. You know, it's just wonderful because every day they have to read about, you know, children frolicking in the snow with their mittens and their sleds. And then here's a picture of Mayor right there, like, I lived there, I know that. That lady, oh, I don't have that picture, but that lady is from Chuk, I can tell by her skirt. You know, it's just like, they get really, really involved immediately by that. So even for that alone, I would suggest, you know, just making that connection of this is something that I know, and it's in a book. This is something that I would say, and it's in a book, you know, is very, very important for them. So that's the idea, right, is to bring the students along and to make them successful. So, all right. Okay, thank you, everybody.